Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another virtual cooking class here with City of Salem. My name is Amy Church. I am the owner of Willamette Valley Kitchen Company here downtown, and I am so happy to be here this evening to teach you another simple and healthy and fun dinner that you can cook along with me at home. So let's see, a couple quick things that I just want to get out of the way. If you've never been to the store, please come in. We would love to have you. And if you see something that I'm using tonight that catches your eye and you have to have it, I should have pretty much everything here available that I'm going to use. And if you finish up your cooking tonight and are very excited about it and want to take a picture, I would love to see them. If you want to, you can follow us on Facebook at Willamette Valley Kitchen Co. or on Instagram at Salem Cooks and post a picture of your dinner. I would love to see it. Please tag us if you do. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we are going to make teriyaki salmon with brown rice and baby bok choy. And before I say anything else about the teriyaki, I want to just get started on the brown rice because that is definitely the thing that takes a little while to cook, and we need to get that started right away so that it can be done when our teriyaki salmon is done. So if you are using brown rice tonight, this is a really simple and easy way to cook brown rice. Sometimes brown rice can be like, I don't know, kind of like mysterious. Everyone's used to cooking white rice and knowing how to make it turn out correctly, but brown rice is like, how much water do I use? How much longer do I have to cook it? Brown rice is really healthier for you than white rice. It has a lot more fiber because it still has the, whatever it's called, the bran or something, I think the bran or the hull. So it is good for you. It has a nice chewy texture and a great nutty flavor. So I really enjoy brown rice. And I'll show you an easy way to cook it here. So basically, if you're making a cup of brown rice, and you can use any style of brown rice for this method, whether it's a longer grain or a shorter grain, brown basmati, all of those different varieties will work just fine for this cooking method for your brown rice. So you'll see over here, my hand going up here? Yes, there it is. Over here on the stove, I have just a big saucepan of water that is at a boil right now. I don't have anything else in there currently, no salt or anything. If you want to add a little bit of salt to your water, you can go ahead and do that at this point. I would add maybe a quarter to a half a teaspoon for a cup of rice. But you can always add a little bit of salt at the end. What I usually do is put in a pat of butter, and I use salted butter, so I don't usually add much salt at this point. But that's up to you how you want to do that. But the most important thing is use a nice big pot, and if you're making a cup of rice, you want at least 6 cups of water boiling. I am going to make a little more than a cup of rice, and so I have 8 cups of water in my pot, just so you know. So it doesn't have to be exact. The rice is just going to boil in the pot of water. It's not going to be like when you normally cook white rice where you need to have just the right amount so it all soaks it up and there's no water left. We're actually going to drain the rice after a half an hour. So whatever water is left over, we're just going to drain it. So if you have your pot of water there boiling, you can go ahead and add in, if you want to add in a little salt, add that in at this point, and then we're going to add in our rice and just stir it in. I have a lid on the pot right now. You won't need the lid while the rice is cooking, but you will need the lid at the end of the 30 minutes. So you can just take the lid off for right now. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to rinse my rice. Actually, I need to do this at the sink, and I have a strainer right here. I'm just going to rinse my rice really, really quickly and then dump it into the pot of water. Okay, I rinsed my rice and now it's going into the water. See, get a little extra here that's stuck to the strainer. And just give that a little stir. And you can pretty much have it on medium high to high for right now. You want it to come back up to a boil. So just keep an eye on it over there on the side of the stove, and you want it to come back up to a boil. And then once it's boiling again, you can turn it down a little bit. You just want it at kind of like a gentle boil, basically. And you can use that same strainer again later on. Just make sure there's no uncooked pieces of rice in it before you use it again later on. Maybe give it a little whack. There we go. Got the uncooked rice out of there, and that strainer is ready to use again later. So I'm keeping an eye on the rice. When it comes back up to a boil, I might turn it down a little bit. Basically, how we're going to cook that rice is we're going to let it boil without the lid on for 30 minutes. At that point, the rice will basically be cooked all the way through, and there should still be water in the pan. And then we're just going to pour the water through the strainer. So we'll have our cooked rice there without any water anymore. We're going to add the cooked rice back to the pan and just put it back on the stove completely off the heat and put the lid on it, and it will steam with the lid on for about 10 minutes. And that will just kind of just nicely finish off the rice, give it a nice fluffy texture. You can eat it after the 30 minutes, but it has a nicer texture if you put the lid on and let it steam for about 10 minutes. So that's our rice cooking procedure for no measure easy brown rice, and it will take 40 minutes while we cook everything else today. Okay, next thing we are going to work on is our teriyaki sauce. Can everybody, hopefully everyone can hear me out there okay. Send a message if you're having any issues. Okay, so I'm sure almost all of you are familiar with the flavor of teriyaki sauce, because teriyaki is a very, very popular dish to eat here in the Pacific Northwest. There were a lot of immigrants to our region from both Japan and Korea throughout like 50s, 60s, 70s that just opened lots of teriyaki shops. And if you travel around the country, other parts of the country do not have as many teriyaki shops as we do. People just take it for granted. Oh, every corner here, and it is not like that. There's teriyaki in the rest of the country. It's something very specific to the Pacific Northwest. However, the kind of teriyaki sauce that we're familiar with here in the United States is a lot different than the teriyaki sauce that they make in Japan, which is where teriyaki comes from. And I very much prefer to make a homemade Japanese style teriyaki sauce. It is so much lighter and less sugary. You'll see when your sauce is done here, it's really like a thin textured sauce. It's not thick like a glaze like it would be if you bought a bottle of teriyaki sauce here at the grocery store. So I just love it so much. Great with salmon or of course chicken. It would be like classic chicken teriyaki. You can use this sauce for either one. It's very delicious and quick and easy to put together. So let's go ahead and get started putting together our Japanese style teriyaki sauce. We're going to start out with soy sauce as the base. I'm using Yamasa soy sauce, which I like to use because they are a Japanese company, but their headquarters are, for their US headquarters, are here in Salem. If you did not know that, it's like, you can find that building over by the airport. And yeah, they actually make their US soy sauce here in our city. So if you haven't ever before, get Yamasa. Can you see the brand? It looks like a little house, their logo. Try out that kind of soy sauce. So this is just a regular soy sauce. It's not low sodium, regular sodium, but it is a light textured soy sauce. If you go to the Asian market, you can get like a thick, different kinds of thick or dark or sweet soy sauces that are a lot stronger and thicker. This is considered a light soy sauce, which means it's just kind of a thin texture, consistency of water type of soy sauce. So I'm just measuring out a 1/4 cup of our soy sauce here. And that will be the base of our teriyaki. And then we are going to add equal parts of sugar, mirin, and sake. So let's just start doing that, and I'll talk about those different ingredients. So we do have 2 tablespoons of sugar in this, but that is significantly less sugary than, like I mentioned, your American style thick glaze texture teriyaki sauce. So we'll get in our sugar. There it goes. We're using 2 different, well, actually we're going to use 3 different rice products. But for a classic teriyaki sauce, you would normally only use 2. You would use sake, which is a rice wine, and you would use mirin, which is another type of rice wine that is much sweeter than regular sake. This is the sake I use. It's called Shochiku Bai, is what it says on there. This is a very inexpensive sake. If you go to the grocery store, there's this brand and one other brand. They're usually like $6 or $7 for a regular 750 milliliter bottle. So really inexpensive, not the most delicious sake to drink. It's kind of mediocre. You can drink it, but it's not very good. But totally perfect for cooking and really inexpensive. And then this is mirin. This is Kikkoman brand. And like I said, this is also a rice wine, but it's a really sweet rice wine. So we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of each of those. And what we have here, once I get these in, our soy sauce, our sugar, our mirin, and our sake is the classic Japanese teriyaki sauce. That's all there is to it. I add a couple of other things. But if you just wanted to make the absolute classic Japanese teriyaki sauce, it would just be those 4 ingredients and you're done. And you can see that it's not very thick. This is often kind of like brushed onto meats that are being grilled, and it creates a little glaze as the meat cooks. But it's a very thin, light glaze as opposed to a thick American style one. So you can just grab a little fork or a whisk and start stirring that up to get the sugar dissolved. Now, I mentioned I like to add a couple other ingredients. So one of the ingredients that I like to add, because I tend to like things a little tangier as opposed to very, very sweet. So I like to add a little rice vinegar to this as well.
So Amy, there's a question. After opening the sake, soy sauce, rice vinegar, and mirin, which should be kept refrigerated?
Oh, yes. Okay. Let me finish with my rice vinegar comment, and then I'll let you know about refrigeration. So this is also Kikkoman rice vinegar. It's the unseasoned type. You can buy seasoned or unseasoned. So this is just a vinegar. It's like a wine vinegar made out of rice wine, basically. So lots of various rice wine varieties happening here. And I like to put, for my taste buds, 2 tablespoons of this in here as well. So yes, you are going to have maybe some new ingredients at your house if you've opened up these different bottles. I would definitely refrigerate the sake. Always good to refrigerate unsweetened wines because they are going to last a lot better in your pantry if they are refrigerated. So your sake, definitely, yes, refrigerate. It will last longer. And honestly, like, I wouldn't keep a bottle of wine that I was drinking open for weeks and weeks and weeks and months. But when I'm just using this for cooking, I don't worry about it. It's in my fridge until it's gone, and I use it for making teriyaki sauce, and it's totally fine for that. I wouldn't have it open for 2 months and then think I'm gonna have a glass of it and it's going to be delicious, because it won't. But for cooking, totally great. The other 3 I do not refrigerate. So the mirin, soy sauce, and rice vinegar, I put those in my pantry just on the regular shelf. So hopefully that answered your question about refrigeration. And let's keep on going here. So as I mentioned, teriyaki sauce at its most basic is just this liquid mixture. Again, I'm stirring to dissolve that sugar. But two optional ingredients that I think are really, really tasty and make your teriyaki even better are to add in a little bit of grated onion and grated ginger. So I almost always do that if I have a little bit of, an extra minute or two. And I'm definitely going to do that today. Let's start with our ginger, just fresh ginger root here. For this amount of sauce, I generally do about an inch long piece of the ginger root, or approximately a tablespoon once it's grated is what you're looking for. I'm going to stir my rice and possibly turn it down a little bit. So you do want your rice at a boil, but it doesn't need to be like so vigorous that it's going crazy. It can just be a gentle boil. So back to our ginger root. The easiest way to peel ginger is just with a teaspoon. So I'm going to just go here and peel off the skin from approximately an inch of this root. This is a really, really knobby piece of ginger, which, I don't know, if you're like me, I just cut off the little tiny knobs and don't even worry about them because I find them super annoying when I'm trying to peel it. So that might be a little bit wasteful. If you don't want to be wasteful, don't do that. But honestly, that's often what I do because I just get super annoyed by the little knobs. Okay, there is our ginger with approximately an inch of it with the skin peeled off. And go ahead and discard that peel. Now, depending on what tool you have at your house, you just want to get this grated to a pretty fine texture of grating. So probably the two options that most people are going to have are either just a metal grater, like a flat one like this, or a box grater, and just choose the small holes. Or if you happen to have a microplane zester, this is a great option. So either one of those will be perfect. I'm going to show you this tool, and just with the caveat that I super love this tool, but I don't have it in stock right now because it's on back order. But I have it on order and it will be coming in hopefully someday. Maybe when COVID is over. No, hopefully before that. I don't know when, but it will be coming in eventually. But this is another type of microplane. It's microplane brand, but it's specifically for ginger. And if you use a ton of ginger, I highly recommend it because it is awesome for ginger. It has pointy teeth instead of flat teeth, and it just mows right through the ginger root. You know how ginger root is super fibrous, and these little teeth on this particular grater just really work well. So I've got my ginger grated. Did you see how fast that was? That's because this tool works so well. I'm just going to use a little spoon to scrape that extra off of there. And actually, when I smoosh my grated ginger into this tablespoon that I had sitting here, it's almost exactly a tablespoon. So that's exactly what I was looking for right there. An inch of ginger around a tablespoon of grated. Okay, and then we just need some onion, and that will be the last ingredient for our teriyaki sauce. You don't need a huge amount of onion, so you're going to just need to use the rest of your onion for whatever you like to use onions for. But if you're using just a regular size yellow onion like this, I generally use about a quarter of it. So I'm going to cut this in quarters and just set 3/4 of it aside for another use. Get the peel off this quarter that I'm going to use. Okay, so I've got 1/4 of an onion. You can use a yellow onion or a white onion. I use whatever I have around. I wouldn't, actually, I don't know if it would really even matter. You could probably use a red or a purple onion because the sauce is dark brown. So I was gonna say it would look strange, but I don't know, honestly, if you could even tell. I think it might just get covered up by the brown color of the sauce and you wouldn't even know. So use whatever onion you like. I'm just going to grate this. I'm using this metal grater with the smallish holes. Grating onion is a nice option when you really want some strong onion flavor without adding a bunch of maybe like crunchy chunks of onion. So for example, I often grate onion if I'm making, in the summertime, potato salad or coleslaw, and I just use the grated onion and kind of toss it with the other ingredients. And you don't need a whole lot to give a good, delicious oniony flavor to your salad. But it's nice for this because it just kind of dissolves into the teriyaki sauce. Onion's always kind of weird to grate. It just kind of mushes up. So do your best to get the majority of your 1/4 of an onion grated as best you can. I always end up with this kind of weird splayed out looking thing when I'm done. And that's fine. We have some nice grated onion here, and it often makes a lot of onion juice also. So do your best to actually use your knife, or if you have a little scraper like this, and actually get that onion juice up and put it in your sauce, because that is good flavor. Okay, so we've added in our ginger and onion, and our teriyaki sauce is ready to go. That's all there is to it. We can set this aside until a little bit later. Let's see. If you wanted to make this and have it like stored in your fridge so you could use it whenever you like, I would leave out the onion and ginger. Everything else in the sauce is totally, very stable, and you could put it all mixed up together in a jar in your fridge, and it would just last and last for weeks and weeks and weeks, because it's just soy, sugar, rice vinegar, mirin, alcohol, nothing that's going to go bad. But the onions and ginger would start to get kind of funky. So if you think, oh, it would be nice to just have like a pint jar of teriyaki sauce, just double the recipe a couple times and mix up the liquids with the sugar, and you just have this sauce ready to go at a moment's notice, and you can decide whether you want to add a little bit of ginger and or a little bit of onion to your sauce when you want to use it. Okay, I am just going to get rid of a couple of these utensils here and wipe off my cutting board, and we will continue on with our salmon. Gee whiz, folks, you know what I just realized? I didn't set a timer on my rice.
It was 10 after 6.
Yeah, I hope you set a timer, but if you were following right along with me, my wonderful helper here, Jan Irene, mentions that it was 6:10 when we started it, which means that it has been cooking for 20 minutes. So I'm going to set a timer now for 10 minutes. And if you want to do that as well, if you feel like you're at the same time as I am, go ahead and set your timer for 10 minutes right now. There we go. You can stir your rice just once or twice while it's cooking. You don't have to be constantly stirring it. Just make sure that it is over there and at a good gentle boil and stir it a couple of times. And if by any chance you notice that the water seems to be running dry, which should not be happening if you used at least 6 cups of water, but just in case it did happen, just go ahead and pour in a cup more water and bring it back up to a boil, and then continue on with the timing from that point. All right, let's talk about our salmon. So I just have my 4 pieces of salmon here in a dish ready to season. So go ahead and get your salmon out of the fridge and onto a plate or a dish if you have not already done that. And we are going to get it ready. Let's see. This is a very simple preparation for the salmon because all of our flavor really is in our teriyaki sauce. So we're just going to very lightly season this with salt and pepper. Don't go overboard on the salt because it's going to be cooking in a soy sauce based sauce. So just a light sprinkle of salt. I actually only season the flesh side, the non-skin side of the salmon. I don't feel like it's necessary. Normally when I'm making salmon that is not teriyaki salmon, I definitely season the skin, but for this particular case, I don't feel like it's really necessary, and most of it falls off anyway. So I season just salt and pepper on the flesh side, the non-skin side. So let's go ahead and do that first. I prefer my salmon for this dish to have skin on, and that's just a personal preference. I absolutely love salmon skin and think it's super delicious. My favorite sushi roll is a salmon skin roll. I love it, love it, love it. So I have no problem having the skin on here and eating it with my salmon teriyaki. And I do think it helps to hold the fish together when you're cooking it. So even if you are not going to eat the skin, which is totally fine, I still would recommend leaving the skin on and cooking it, and then you can just kind of peel the skin off or just kind of use your fork as you're eating it to, you know, it comes off very easily once it's cooked. So definitely recommend leaving the skin on if you had that option. We got our salmon at the local seafood market, Fitz Seafood, and hopefully you were able to do that as well. I realized just at the end of last week that this class was on a day that Fitz is closed right now. So I don't know if all of you would have been able to get your salmon at Fitz because it required a little bit of planning ahead. But I would definitely encourage you, if you have never been there before, to go check out what they have. They have very good quality seafood. It's the only place in town I will buy shrimp. It's so, so delicious, so much better quality than anywhere else. So definitely go check that out if you have not been there. So I just sprinkled our salmon very lightly with salt. I'm going to go on here next with a small amount of black pepper.
One lady's moving ahead with her cooking because she says, I've never microwaved bok choy before. I usually use it in a stir fry, so I'm a little concerned it's going to be kind of blah, so I made some extra teriyaki.
Yeah. So we had a question about the bok choy, which I'll talk about in a second, but I'm glad you made extra teriyaki sauce. Well, actually, the amount of sauce that this is has plenty of sauce for the bok choy, but I totally agree. The bok choy in this recipe is just completely plain, but it's because the teriyaki sauce is so yummy. And we're going to be able to have that delicious teriyaki sauce on the plate that you'll be able to dip your bok choy in. So the bok choy is plain, but there is the delicious sauce. Okay, so our salmon is seasoned. We're going to put a little bit of flour. You don't need very much at all. It's going to be about 2 tablespoons total. I don't measure it with an actual tablespoon, so I'm not being exact at all here. I just stick a spoon into my flour and just kind of sprinkle about 2 spoonfuls of flour onto the skin, onto the flesh side of the salmon, like so. Okay, once you have that on there, you can just kind of use your hand to brush it around so that it evenly coats. And then here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so you can see right now it just has an even coating of the flour, and there is extra that's going to fall off. So I'm going to pick up the piece of salmon, I'm going to shake it, and then I'm going to put it back down so that the skin side will get a little bit of that flour also. So basically, pick up your piece of salmon, shake off the excess flour, and then put it right back down the same way so that it is just lightly coated on all sides with that small amount of flour. At this point, you can go ahead and start preheating your pan to cook this salmon. So there we go, salmon is all ready to go, and it just is lightly seasoned and lightly floured. I'm gonna wash my hands. All right, go ahead and get your pan heated up. You want a nice big pan so that all 4 of your pieces of salmon will fit in there. And you do want the pan to have a lid. We're not going to use it right at the start, but we will use it eventually. Heat up that pan. I heat it up over medium-high. And I like to cook this in a mixture of vegetable oil and butter, but you can also do either or. I just do vegetable oil for the higher heat and butter for the yummy flavor. So I do a combination, approximately, well, I do a tablespoon of butter and not quite as much oil, a little bit less oil, but it's close to half and half. Okay, and another thing you want to get ready at this point is just 1 more tablespoon of your sake. So I like to just get that measured out into a little bowl so it's all ready to go. This is going to be just some liquid that we add in kind of halfway through the cooking to just kind of finish the salmon off by steaming it. And the sake just gives a nice flavor. Okay, so you should have your pan heating up, seasoned floured salmon. You can go ahead if you want to at this point and throw your butter and maybe a few dashes of oil into your pan so that can heat up along with the pan. And we also, of course, have our lovely teriyaki sauce ready to go here as well, which we'll again be using a little bit later on in the cooking process, but have that all ready. Let's see, we're gonna put this stuff, just put it over here. Okay, our pan is almost hot, but while we are waiting for it to get completely hot, let's just talk about our vegetables really quick. I like baby bok choy with this whole dish. I think it kind of goes along nicely with the theme, and I love the flavor of baby bok choy. It's really fresh and it's not overpowering, but has a good tasty flavor. These are actually, so there's kind of 2 types of baby bok choys you can get. I don't know which store you guys went to, but you can get this type, which are actually called Shanghai Bok Choy, technically. And they are adorable and cute, and they look really cute on your plate, I think, after they're steamed. There's also one that's actual baby bok choy that has more of a white stem area and more of a dark green leaf. And it's still about the same size, also really cute. So either one of those is great. And of course, if you had a different green vegetable at your house that you needed to use up, that's totally great too. All we're going to do is simply steam our vegetables. Like I said, I like these to just be pretty basic because the teriyaki sauce is so flavorful and we're really focusing on healthiness here. So I just think They taste best just simple, and then the teriyaki sauce is a lovely accompaniment.
Okay, can we take questions about the bok choy?
Yes, I'm going to pause for just a second because there's a lot of things going on, and whoever just asked that next question, I will answer it very shortly. But our pan is definitely hot for our salmon, and our rice just got done cooking. So I'm actually going to take the pan off the heat for a second, and I'm going to strain the rice. It has been cooking now for 30 minutes, and you can go ahead, maybe take a tiny little spoonful of it, just one grain, and make sure it's not, for some reason, still crunchy. It should not be, but it's always good to be on the safe side and check. So I'm just testing out my brown rice here and making sure it is soft. It's definitely soft. Okay, so if your brown rice is also soft at this point, just go ahead. I'm going to go over to the sink, but just pour out all that excess water and pour your rice through a strainer, like so, and then immediately dump the cooked rice back into the pan without the water. All right, so there is our cooked rice. You can see over here back in the pan, and I have the heat off. All I'm going to do is put my lid on. Make sure you don't still have the heat on. You do not want the rice to actually cook any more than that. But again, I'm going to set another timer for 10 minutes, and we're going to just let that rice just gently steam with the lid on for 10 more minutes as we finish other things up. Okay, back to our pan. And I am going to put it back on the heat. The onion, the butter and oil have melted together. And I am going to go ahead and add our salmon in there. Normally, if your salmon does have skin on it, I like to cook it skin side down first and then flip it to the other side. So that's what I'm going to do today. And I do have the pan still on medium high. There's a little sizzle. Since I had taken it off the heat, it wasn't sizzling a huge amount, but now it's starting to sizzle again. So add your salmon to that pan and set a timer for maybe 4 minutes. I think 4 minutes is good. 3 to 4 minutes. It depends how thick your salmon is, and this salmon is pretty thick. So if your salmon is on the thinner side, 3 minutes. If it's on the thicker side, 4 minutes. And have a spatula of some sort ready to go because we are going to want to flip that as soon as that timer goes off. If you have a fish spatula, that's your best bet because they are nice and thin and will allow you to flip your salmon without it all busting apart. Otherwise, if you just have a regular spatula of some sort, that'll be good too. Okay, we are going back to bok choy, and I think we had a question.
Yes, the question was how much of the leaf do you cook?
Oh yeah, so you're gonna cook everything. So here's your little bok choy. The only thing you might wanna do is make sure the bottom is trimmed off so that it's still white. Depending on what market you got it at, they may have trimmed them very nicely. This one is perfectly white and I did not trim it. It came like that, so all I did was rinse them off. But sometimes they have gotten a little bit discolored, and so I would trim off the bottom, but the whole thing is edible, aside from just trimming. So you'll get little ones like this. I usually just cut them in half. Unless they're really, really humongous, I just cut them in half. So then you'll have two cute little halves that look like that, and they're very pretty. Do make sure that you wash these very, very, very well. I have already washed these ones very thoroughly, but One annoying thing about baby bok choy is that they tend to be sandy down where the stems come together. So you really want to wash them thoroughly. I often just put them and submerge them in a big bowl of cold water and let them hang out for a little while so that they really get nicely washed, and then I kind of splash them around to make sure they are not gritty. Like I mentioned, I'm just going to steam these. I am using a silicone microwave steaming pod, like so, that just has a little steaming tray underneath the vegetables. I really like these. They are a great handy way to cook vegetables and not have to have another pan on the burner. And basically, I didn't put a time on the steaming of the vegetables because everyone's microwave is a different power. So it totally depends on your own microwave, and hopefully you know your microwave. But here, these take maybe 4 to 5 minutes, and I kind of check them halfway through. Of course, if you do not have a microwave steaming pod or you are not used to steaming things in the microwave, there's also options like this, and just steam it on the stovetop. Whatever works for you, whatever you're comfortable with for your own setup at your house. But I'm gonna go ahead and just throw these in the microwave at this point and at least get them started so that I don't forget about them later. So there's a little pod thrown in the microwave. Okay, I'm starting to smell our salmon, and it is definitely sizzling away over here. We have, on my timer, we have 45 seconds left on that side of the salmon. So next thing you're gonna want is your little tablespoon of sake that you measured out. Make sure you have that ready for when the timer goes off. Once we flip our salmon here, we can work on a couple of quick garnishes. But really, things are coming together nicely. Let's see what time it is. Oh, good. I think we're right on time, so that's perfect. Let's see. Salmon has 5 seconds left. I'm just going to turn this timer off so it doesn't beep. All right. So what you want to do after you cook the first side of your salmon is gently flip it over. Be careful first, splattering oil. You don't want that to hit you. But gently flip it over. Turn the heat down more to like medium low to medium. Add in your little spoonful of sake and put the lid on. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Look at that beautiful salmon skin. I'm super pumped, you guys. I don't know if you like salmon skin as much as I do, but I love it. And I'm super excited that it's so nice and crispy and golden brown. Okay, I'm adding in the tablespoon of sake. I am turning down the heat. I'm putting on the lid. And at this point, you can set your timer again. Again, I think same timing as before. If you have nice thick pieces of salmon, maybe 4 minutes. If you have thinner pieces of salmon and or you like less cooked salmon, maybe a little bit less time. Everyone likes their salmon differently. I like it pretty medium rare. Some people really are not into that and like it to be fully cooked. So whatever you like, just cook it a little bit longer if you like it more well cooked. All right. Two optional garnishes to finish up this dish and make it look pretty are some toasted sesame seeds. I'm just gonna toast those up really quick here on this smaller burner. You can buy toasted sesame seeds also if you don't feel like toasting them at your house. So whatever works for you, but it does definitely bring out the flavor if you have untoasted ones to toast them a little bit until they're golden brown. So I just toast them in a small skillet. You don't need any oil or anything in the skillet. Just do keep an eye on them. They will look like nothing is happening, and then all of a sudden they will fairly quickly turn golden brown.
Mark asked, you just flipped, lowered heat, and covered, right? No sake or teriyaki, but you did put 1 tablespoon.
The sake, yes. Mark, the 1 tablespoon of sake goes in before you put the lid on. No teriyaki sauce yet, but yes to the 1 tablespoon of sake. The teriyaki is going to go in a little bit, just in a minute or two. I am grabbing 1 more tablespoon of butter from my fridge because, as I mentioned, I like to put a tablespoon of butter into my rice when I fluff it up. So that's just sitting there ready to go. And in the background back here, our microwave oven did beep. So I'm gonna check out the bok choy in a second as well. And I'm keeping an eye on these sesame seeds to make sure they are not getting burned. All right. I don't know if, can you see the steam? Yes, you can see it on the camera. Lots of steam coming up out of these bok choy as I took them out of the microwave. And I am just testing them to see if they are tender. And I think they need maybe another minute or two, but they are definitely getting there. Okay, that is the timer on our salmon. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off on the salmon. I'm gonna put these bok choy back in the microwave. All right, so to finish up our teriyaki dish, we want to take the lid off the salmon. And we're going to briefly transfer the salmon to a plate. The salmon is basically really nicely cooked at this point. And if you put the teriyaki sauce in here and just kept on cooking it, your salmon will get overcooked. So I like to just quickly take it out to a plate and then add the teriyaki sauce to the pan and bring it up to a boil. So teriyaki sauce here. You don't need to wash out the pan or anything. It just has good salmon-y flavor in it right now. So add in your teriyaki mixture. And at this point, you can turn that way up high because all we want to do is reduce that sauce a little bit. My sesame seeds, can you see them? Maybe better over here, are golden brown. And so I'm going to get them out of this hot pan so that they stop cooking. All right. The other timer also went off, which was our rice. So our rice has been steaming now for 10 minutes. And all I am going to do for that is just open it up and take a fork and throw in my little pat of butter that I have sitting here and just fluff it up with the fork and let the butter melt. The rice looks nice and fluffy. I hope yours at home is looking equally tasty if you're making brown rice along with us. I'm just gonna let that pat of butter just kind of sit there in the center and melt. I'm gonna put the lid back on so that that will be ready to go when we are ready to eat. Let's see. take a look at your teriyaki sauce. You can see here it is boiling away. You can give it a stir. And I just like to let it boil for a few minutes and it will lightly thicken. So again, we are not looking for a thickness comparable to American style teriyaki sauce. It shouldn't look like corn syrup, just a little bit thicker than when you started out. All right, so we'll just let that thicken for a minute or two longer. I have some green onions or scallions here, and these are our second garnish. I think these always taste super delicious on, well, on pretty much anything, but especially on teriyaki, it's a really good option. Do we have another question? Okay, wanted to make sure I hadn't missed any. So I am just thinly slicing green onions. My microwave is beeping at me because I'm sure the bok choys are all set and ready to go. Let's take a look at our sauce one more time. I think it's about ready. Oh yeah, this is looking really good to me. Okay, so now I had this up on pretty high to reduce. Now you can just go ahead and drop your salmon back in there. And I just like to gently spoon a little bit of the teriyaki sauce over each piece. Hopefully, yeah, you can see that over on the second camera. Just go ahead and get some teriyaki on each piece of salmon there. Hopefully it is smelling really good at your house. I love the smell of this teriyaki. Actually, ever since I started cooking this style of teriyaki at home, it has become my spouse Aaron's favorite dish. And we have it almost once a week now, honestly. He just loves it, so I'm really used to that delicious aroma being in our kitchen. All right, I have the pan with the salmon on low, and honestly, like, just leave it in there in the sauce for a minute or two just to let the salmon come back up to temperature, and then it is ready to serve. So let's go ahead and make a plate. Hopefully you all are along with me at the same point, but I'm gonna go ahead and put a plate together and show you what that looks like. Just grabbing my bok choy out of the microwave. Gonna use that. Let's see. There we go. There's a little rice paddle. Okay. Everything should be off at this point. I'm just giving that rice one more stir to mix in the butter that I put in there. So we'll start out with a nice scoop of rice. Depending on what type of rice you use, this may or may not be sticky. I was using actually a long grain one, so it's not super sticky. If you were using a more short grain like sushi type rice, you may have it a little stickier. Either way is great. Then you can arrange a couple of these baby bok choy. This is one of the reasons I really like to use these, is just because they're so pretty on the plate. So give each person a few of those. We're going to grab a fillet of salmon. Oh my gosh, my salmon slipped right off the spatula. Everything's fine. And we will finish this up. You can take a spoon and give each person a nice couple spoonfuls of the teriyaki sauce. Make sure you get all the goodies. Sometimes they tend to get stuck around the edges of the pan. So spoon some teriyaki sauce over the salmon, and you can spoon a little bit over the bok choy as well. And then our two garnishes are the toasted sesame and the sliced green onions. We'll just put some of those around the plate. The green onions look especially pretty on the salmon, and I like the sesame. It shows up nicely on the bok choy, and I like sesame on the rice also. Okay. I'm going to bring this plate over here under the stove camera so you can see it. I never could figure out which way to turn it. There it is. All right, there is our teriyaki salmon with baby bok choy and brown rice. And I hope that you all really enjoy your dinner tonight. Does anybody have any last questions? Hopefully everything is working out fine for you at home. If you have a question, go ahead and get on chat and let me know. I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, take a picture of your dinner before you eat it. I always forget to do that. But go ahead and take a picture. And if you are on social media, definitely tag us at the store. I would love to see your pictures of your dinner. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here at Willamette Valley Kitchen Company. I hope you all had a fun time. Thanks for having me, City of Salem.